I'm on a bizarre 3,000-mile journey that will take me to 2 continents and across 2 hemispheres. Though they sit 1,500 miles apart in different hemispheres, they share a common history, language, and culture. Both were home to advanced civilizations who constructed grand architectural masterpieces and made discoveries and innovations that helped shape the modern world, yet mysteriously vanished seemingly overnight. And both were eventually conquered by a great empire who left behind a legacy which has survived for over half a millennium. But despite their similar history, they still remain vastly different in many ways. Over the next few days, I'm going to be exploring some of the great cities, civilizations, and cultures of these exotic countries, both old and modern, discovering their unusual folklore and how the traditions of their ancestors have persisted into the modern world, and it's all entirely by pure chance. These are the Latin American countries of Mexico and Peru! I'll begin my journey in southern Peru, in the historic region of Cusco, where I'll visit the traditional towns and villages of the Sacred Valley. From there, I'll fly 350 miles to the Pacific coast, to Peru's capital and largest city, Lima, where I'll tour the modern high-end district of Miraflores and the ancient ruins of Huaca Pucllana. From Lima, I'll fly about 2,600 miles across the equator to Mexico City. After touring some of the city's modern streets and historic plazas, I'll stop by a local artisan's shop before visiting the spectacular ancient city of Teotihuacan. Historic Cusco, Peru, oldest city in the Americas, ancestral heartland of the Inca, or Tetra, as they're officially called. Inca was actually their title for their king. I'm gonna spend the day just strolling the streets and visiting some of the less popular sites. This beautiful street we're on right now is Calle Mantas, and it's sort of the main commercial street of Cusco. This is the Santa Clara Monastery, and it's an all-female Franciscan monastery which was founded around 1549 to provide shelter for local orphans. The current monastery was completed in 1622. This is a nice little find. This is the Cusicancha Museum, and right here we have the ruins of an old concha or city block.
Your camera?
and this basically would have been an area where the commoners lived. And they would have been laid out in a grid pattern similar to today's Latin American cities. And because the Spanish tore apart most of the original city to build their own structure, very little can be seen today of the original city, as most of the original constructions have been buried beneath the modern city. Since they basically built atop the original foundation, the street pattern has remained virtually the same. Here you can actually see 3 different building methods. This is the former Archbishop's Palace, and now houses the Museum of Religious Art. The building was at one time an Inca palace before it was dismantled and rebuilt in a Renaissance and Moorish style. You can still see some of the original Inca stones. But this is the convent of Santo Domingo, built atop a large Inca temple. Originally covered with gold, plundered by the Spanish. Only the only place in the sea where you can actually see entire sections of the temple. These walls survived earthquakes, but sadly couldn't survive Spanish army. All kinds of celebrations happening today. I don't know when these people have time to work. All the time they're celebrating something. Behind me is the Santa Teresa convent. It was built in 1673, and it used to be the house of Spanish conquistador Diego de Silva. And what's unique about this church is that it's one of the few churches in the city that was built after the 1650 earthquake. So everything you see here is completely original. That church we see up on the hill, there's the San Cristobal Church. It was built in 1673 atop the palace, which belonged to the first Inca ruler, Manco Capac. And it was actually built not by the Spanish, but by a local Indian chief to show the Indians' devotion to Christianity. I'm in the picturesque art district of San Blas. Earlier we visited a museum of colonial religious art. This time we're going to visit a museum dedicated to modern religious art. What's cool is that the artist named Hilario Mendeville actually depicted himself and his family in some of his artworks. Yeah, this mural right here looks like it's showing all the different religious feasts from all the different neighborhoods, because they each celebrate their own saint. And right here we have a depiction of the region's famous Inti Raymi festival. Alright, up here you can see examples of some of the masks that are worn during religious festivals. And here we can see some of Hilario Mendeville's beautiful and controversial vicuña neck religious figures. It's okay guys, it's just me. I just love these whites and blues. This neighborhood looks more like Greece than Latin America. It looks like we've stumbled upon some locals celebrating Andean New Year or Mother Earth Day. I just love these Moorish style balconies. It seems that every region on Earth has its own local take on pizza. Here in Cusco you can get alpaca pizza. You get to enjoy it over this nice view. That's the street we're staying on, and right over there is the entrance to our hotel. The next morning, I explored the traditional towns and villages of the Sacred Valley.
Organic food we have here. That's why the expectation of life here is 85 years for ladies, 80 years for men, 60 years, 65, 20 years different. Their life is different. They don't, do exercises. Their life is very, busy. But also they don't have this fresh air, polluted, the big cities. Too noisy. That's why the people, when they go to the big cities, they don't like. They stay just 1 week. After that, they decide to come back.
Like a pig
We're gonna see here in most of the houses, over the roof, 2 bulls and a cross. The bulls are representing the reciprocity, the wellness, the force, the power of the families, and the cross represent the families are Catholics. So elevation here, 9,000. We use natural colors. This is a prickly pear cactus. Yeah. Do you see the white spots over here? Those are insects, the cochineal. These natural colors comes from these insects. They put water and the plants at the cochineal and they get the red. You can see here red color, green color over here, and they let dry over here. So take a look. This is alpaca wool.
You can bet.
Yes.
Sorry.
Now, as you've probably heard, the Incas were famous for having over 50 varieties of corn and over 3,000 different varieties of potatoes. And a lot of people think they were produced through experimental agriculture, but they actually developed in nature.
Take a look on the left. We cannot see anything because down there in the valley they are starting to burn the corn. This is bad because they pollute, and they believe that with the ashes they fertilize the soil. That's the Veronica Mountain. In Quechua, Huaca welcome. So take a look at this house. Why the people prefer to use adobe mat bricks, keep warm inside. So take a look at the left terraces. We have terraces. Do you see the water canal in the middle? Imagine the people brought water from the snow-capped mountain. Alright, this is piece of my friend. So take a look. We have construction that side, constructions also over there. This was the entrance of the Sacred Valley and to Machu Picchu. So that means everybody in Inca times, they need to come here in order to go to Machu Picchu. We believe when the frog starts to cry, it's calling the rainy season. So that's why we worship that animal. The houses here, colonial. You can try the alpaca beef, which is good. Ceviche also is available.
And we stopped here for lunch at this fancy restaurant in Urubamba. Nene, ona pluja.
Look, I saw a llama. It was Yamapu. Meaning Yamapu. It says that's Yamapu. Oh.
Don't spit. Oh wow, this is nice. We're on the banks of the Urubamba River. And all those red rocks we see are iron. That's why the colors are red. The neat thing about this restaurant is it's housed in an old colonial building. In fact, right over here we have a small church.
Ollantaytambo. This is the Inca living city. People are still living inside of the Inca houses.
This is Ollantaytambo, built in the 15th century. When you built a lot of it, town was using the stones from the original Inca ruin.
And the rest of the architecture, Inca. But that one over there, pre-Inca. Different. Small tribes used to live here before Incas. Why this shape?
Help for earthquake?
Yes. Interlocking system. When an earthquake happens, this small piece of stones absorb the energy. He's carrying a lot of the stuff on his back. According to the scholars, he's carrying the knowledge.
The structure we see down there is a temple of the water.
The local people drink straight from the river?
No.
Right here we have the Ollantaytambo Church.
So here the people on the right, they are drinking corn beer.
Coca leaf. You know, without this plant, there is no cocaine in the world.
Too much coffee and I
Everywhere you go here you can see these llamas. Llama is actually one of the only Quechua words that's used in English.
Beautiful country. You have a bunch of things to see around. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Every corner.
And I like how they dress, you know, like the culture dresses. So beautiful. Yeah.
Very nice.
Nie widzę w tym tych ludzi. To ty pamiątkę z nich chcesz? Here?
Ja mówię w lewo.
I don't have I don't have American dollar. I am
Right down there is Lake Parai. The local legend says that there was actually a hoard of Inca gold at the bottom of the lake. And for hundreds of years, the locals alleged to have seen UFOs flying in and out of the lake.